Yaba Voice webinar. I hope you can hear me loud and clear. Yeah, how are you doing? And I'm so excited to welcome you to yet another educative and highly informational webinar from the stable of Yaba Voice of the Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital, Yaba, Lagos. You know, people will just talk about Yaba left, but no, it's not just about the left thing. It's about what we are doing, the beautiful voice that is coming out from this place. We have done some very exciting and highly informative webinar this year. In January, we did prioritizing your mental health in 2023, your responsibility. And in February, we had emotional intelligence, a must for mental stability. And in March, we went ahead to look at women's mental health. And we looked at the causes as well as the interventions. And that was a very, very well attended webinar because it's something that is very pertinent to every one of us. You know, if you are not a woman, at least you have a mother, you have a sister, you have a girl child. No, it's just, we're just there. We are beautiful and we're just there all over the place. And today, by the grace of God, we will be looking at something very, very important. But before we proceed, I want to invite the Medical Director and Chief Executive Officer of the Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital, Yaba Lagos, and the arrowhead of the Yaba Voice, Dr. Olubenga Adekile Owoye, to welcome us formally to this webinar. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Kenny. Are you there?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay, you can hear me very well now. Okay, that's good. Thank you very, very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I warmly welcome you to this month's edition of our webinar by Yaba Voice. Yaba Voice is a platform for mental health education, advocacy, and community outreach. It is a social media platform of Federal Neuropsychiatric Hospital, Yaba, Lagos, through which the hospital create awareness and educate the populace on mental health issues. Today's topic is your mental health and environmental factors. Your mental health and environmental factors. According to the World Health Organization, health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of diseases or infirmity. Meaning that health is maintained on the aforementioned tripod stand, the physical, the mental, and the social. Therefore, there is no health without mental health. As you all know, most of us will experience a change in our mental health due to environmental factors. For some, the effects may be minimal, but for others, the toll of mental health is significant. These main environmental factors could be physical, it could be social, and it could be psychological. In today's webinar, there are many questions to be addressed. What do we understand by mental health and environmental factors? How important are these environmental factors? What are these environmental factors? And what are those factors that can compromise our mental health? And how do we maintain a very sound mental health in the face of these environmental factors? To address these issues, our great mental health experts on our platform today. The first is Dr. Harriet Esangbedo. Harriet is a dedicated mental health and behavioral health expert who reaches out to everyone who seeks help in many areas of mental health. He helps his clients, including the children, adolescents, and adults, as well as families seeking to attain mental health. She is committed to ensuring mental health takes a center stage in the Nigerian healthcare system, while lending her experts in ending the strangulating stigma that surrounds the ordinary individual seeking mental health. Harriet's educational qualifications include Bachelor of Medicine, Bachelor of Surgery from University of Calabar, a Master's in Business Admin from Warden University, and he's also a fellow of the West African College of Physicians. She enjoys dancing and having fun with children. The second is Olumide Okeowo. Olumide Okeowo is a clinical psychologist at Lagos University Teaching Hospital with core competence in various psychometric assessment and psychological intervention. He had his basic medical degree in psychology from OAU, MS in clinical psychology from University of Ibadan, and a certificate in people analytics. Mr. Okeowo has over 18 years of working experience, with 7 out of it focused on mental health practice, clinical experience covering child and adolescent, general adult, and neuropsychiatry, as well as substance abuse intervention, which is evidence-based. He also has a deep competence in management, employee assistance program, and leadership development. He is a Christian and married with 2 children. I want us to sit down and relax today as we listen to our mental health experts while we promise you a rewarding session of today's seminar. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, the medical director, for that arousing welcome. I want to say that the medical director has been a very strong proponent of ensuring that this webinar goes out every month, and it's more so that everyone will be enlightened about the issue of mental health, even in our community. Gone are the days where you will say, I do not know. Yaba Voice is trying to bridge the gap and to ensure that we destigmatize mental health as much as possible. And so what we're talking about today, it's your mental health and environmental factors. These environmental factors are very germane to how well we live and how well we function. And like the medical director says, we have very key experts who will be talking to us of this very important topic of discussion. Now we're going to move on to the first speaker, Dr. Harriet Esangwedo, who is going to talk to us about what does the concept of environment mean in mental health. When we're talking about environment, what exactly are we talking about? Over to you, Dr. Esangwedo.
Okay, thank you very much, Kenny. Thank you very much, Medical Director, Dr. Waya. Okay, before we jump into what the concept of environment means, I would like to throw a little bit of light on what mental health is. So mental health is a state of mental well-being that enables people to cope with the stresses of life, realize their abilities, learn well and work well, and contribute to their community. It is an integral component of health and well-being that determines our individual and collective abilities to make decisions, to build relationships, and to shape the world in which we live in. Now, coming to the concept of the environment. So the environment is said to be the aggregate of the external agents or conditions, which includes the physical, the biological, the social, and cultural conditions, which influences the function, the behavior, the character, and the well-being of all individuals. Now, the environment and mental health are inextricably intertwined. The places that people go to or spend time in, such as the home, the workplace, school, and even social gatherings, can impact significantly on one's mental health. Being able to identify environmental factors which can affect us, one, psychologically, can help one assess whether the places one frequents often may contribute or distract one from his or her own mental goals. This may also help one to adjust or make changes early enough to help them achieve mental wellness. Thank you very much, Kenny.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Harriet Esangwedo. She had opened up this discussion for us. And I hear her say, when we talk about the dimension of environment, it's multidimensional. Yes, you talk about the home, school, the social gathering, frequent places where you go and you spend your time. Now, Mr. Olumide Okeowo will be talking to us about what are now the factors in the environment that can affect our mental health. What are the factors in the environment that can affect our mental health. Mr. Olumide Okeowo, over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kemi, and then the MD. Thank you very much for hosting this wonderful program. So just following on from where Dr. Harriet has spoken in terms of introducing to us what this topic is all about. I will be talking about factors. She mentioned about the impact of the environment in terms of psychological, in terms of social, in terms of physical. So I'll just mention some of the factors that go along in those directions that can impact our mental health. I mean, for instance, you can begin to think about how the environment affects our mental health. When you talk about clustered spaces, when people are in a place where the environment is so tight, they are not able to be themselves, they are not able to relate properly with others. In that kind of environment, you can also, still talking about the physical, we will see that climate can also affect where you have, or for instance, when it is very hot in our environment, some people are not able to sleep very well. So when they don't sleep very well, it will impact how they relate the next day when they are at work, going to school, or anywhere they go to. Because of the effect of not sleeping well, they might not start their day very well. They might not be able to do the things that they normally do with so much energy and all of that. So physically, that can happen. Another factor that can affect is, things around us like the lighting, the temperature, the smell, the color of the environment where we are. If you are not comfortable in the environment where you are, it might bring agitation. Someone that is not comfortable, maybe is at work or in school, are not comfortable with an environment, it might begin to not want to go to that place. And coming to that place might make the person very anxious. Someone was talking to me in one of the clinics that I run, and she was saying that anytime she comes to the hospital, her blood pressure is always going up. But when she's at home, she checks it, and then it's normal. But anytime she's in the hospital, it goes up. So the hospital environment to her was not conducive enough. And then so that is part of the thing. One more thing that I would like to talk about is people. Within the environment, there is interaction. People you interact with, how you converse. Are you able to manage conflict? Are you able to communicate effectively? If those things are not happening, for instance, someone that is not able to communicate effectively at work might feel anxious when they are going to work, or maybe going into a meeting with maybe their boss or other units within their workplace, and then they feel like, oh, okay, they are not capable enough, so they become anxious. Those are some of the things that can affect our mental health.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Olumide Okeowo. Maybe you would have to just shift a bit. There's this bit of cracking noise coming from your end, so that we will be able to hear you clearer and better, and our audience will be able to take the best away from this webinar. And when he was talking about some of the factors in the environment, he talked about cluster spaces. And I said to myself, I said, this is Lagos. Cluster places. Now we'll look at the implications of all of those things as we go on, and also look at how well we will be able to manage it as we move on subsequently. The climate, yes, the climate condition, it's also something that is very germane. Coming into the office space sometimes, Dr. Harriet talked about our environment as the office space earlier. And she's, and with what Dr. Okeowo had talked about now, when you're in that space and it's hot, you become irritable. Now, sitting down and assessing and taking care of even patient might be a bit difficult, temperature, color, and every other thing like that. I recall that when I was much younger, and then we needed to go to, the general hospital of those days. I don't know how many people can recall, but it has this bit of color that even when you were sick, by the time you get to the hospital, you get more sick. As in, I don't know. Maybe that's part of what we're talking about here now. But, as we go on, we'll begin to look at some of the implications of all of these things. And Dr. Esagwedo is going to talk to us about the link between these environmental factors that we have been able to identify and how it now affects our mental health. And then the repercussion, the consequences, there are things that Dr. Esagwedo is going to help us draw out in this conversation. Please note that if you have comments or questions, you can always drop them in the chat box. We'll be willing to address them before the end of the webinar. Dr. Esagwedo, over to you.
Thank you very much, Kemi, and I do agree with you about those general hospital of those days. The smell and the color would make you even sicker, is the truth. So I would say that environmental factors may actually affect brain structures and the functions of how the brain works. In children who have faced adverse environmental situations such as natural disasters, war, famine, etc. It may cause them to have poor brain development. It may cause them to have behavioral problems and some form of learning difficulties. While in the adults, environmental factors may lower or increase stress levels, which will either protect one's mental health or create an opening for a mental illness. Let me talk about risk. You have risk and protective factors that can help one in the environment either develop or protect the person from developing a mental illness. So risk is the chance or likelihood that something or harm will affect one's health. The risk can manifest themselves at all stages of life and affect the mental state of the individual, either at the time of exposure or later in life. You also have what is called protective factors. So protective factors similarly can occur throughout our lives and can serve to strengthen resilience. They include an individual's social and emotional skills and attributes, as well as positive social interactions. Quality education, decent work, safe neighborhoods, and community cohesion are some form of protective factors that can prevent one from developing a mental illness in a society. Okay, let's look at the home environment. Mr. Okewo has talked about the different physical factors in the home environment that are likely to cause one to develop a mental illness or cause one to have exacerbated symptoms of a mental illness in one who is previously living with a mental illness. So the climate, temperature, sunlight, and all those exposed to natural disaster can lead to higher rates of aggression, anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, adjustment disorders, and even suicide. Like 2 days ago, the sun was so scorching hot. It was hot. Even I became very irritable and a little aggressive because I remember my children coming and I snapped and shouted because the weather was really aggressive, very not friendly. So if someone continues to sit in that kind of situation, you expect that the person will either be exposed to developing a mental illness, or for people that are already living with a mental disorder, this may exacerbate the symptoms of mental disorder. Then you also have in work environment. The work environment, people want to belong. People want to feel appreciated in their jobs. People don't want workplace bullying. People want some form of welfare and social support. If you can have this in your workplace, which is part of your environment, good. However, if you find yourself in a situation where these things are not there, there's a tendency for you to become amotivated to come to work. You are less productive. Your output becomes not as productive as before. You become irritable, aggressive, depressed. Some people may start using substance and using alcohol just for them to be able to cope and adapt to the situation at work, So work environment plays an important role in helping us achieve our mental well-being. Let's look at pollution. Well, everywhere in Lagos right now, noise pollution, um, um, fumes from vehicles, all manners, generator everywhere. These are the pollutions we have in our environment. It may be difficult to escape them, but you should be able to walk through, with some form of self-awareness, so that you will not come down with any form of mental illness. Let's look at poverty. Even the stigma of poverty can lead to some form of stress and traumatic experiences, which can lead to one's mental illness. So in all, because of all this, okay, I forgot, let's talk about the school environment. Now, the school environment, a child in school wants to belong, wants to have a sense of belonging in that school. So now a child without resilience may be, tempted to join bad groups of friends just because they want to belong somewhere. In that process, may begin to use substance, may begin to use alcohol, may join those ones that will help them begin to develop conduct disorders, then they become unfocused in their academic objectives, and so on and so forth. So feeling safe in the school environment, having a sense of belonging, helps one to reduce any form of mental illness, or for those living with any mental illness, symptoms will not be exacerbated. Social environment. Let's look at the social environment. Now, for social environment, we have things like race, employment status, lack of social support, which can affect our mental health. So having close, trusted, well-loved, significant others in one's life can positively impact in one's mental health. Such is true for healthy marriages, close, trusted circles of friends, and important family members. Loneliness, that is a terrible one. Loneliness can lead to depression, can lead to anxiety, can lead to the use of substances and alcohol. So relationship with those who abuse substances may even make one begin to use or expose one to all the vices associated with substance use, which includes violence, emotional and physical abuse, and all this can worsen mental health symptoms in people already living with mental health problems, or open doors for mental health issues to occur in this individual. Thank you very much, Kemi.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Harriet. And I love the way she started with us. And that's the fact that it's not just everything in the environment that is bad. We have some protective factors in the environment too that are meant to help us and keep us safe. And she talked about the social emotional skills that you will have as individuals, as well as a safe neighborhood. Just a few days ago, my husband was talking about it, and he said, gone are the days when people in your environment or in your neighborhood are your family members. Doesn't matter whether you know them or not. Now, people are old. They can't, the old people's home facility is not available. And so you're bothering and wondering and asking yourself, how do I take care of my elderly ones? Where do they stay? Now, a case in hand, my mother-in-law, my father-in-law died, and my mother-in-law is now just being bounced around. She can't be left alone. And gone are the days when she's there in the family gathering, family house, and we are sure that, at least somebody will pop in and say, hey, hello, how are you doing? And all of those things. And this safe in-core protective factor that should be in the environment is gradually being eroded. Maybe we would, before the end of this conversation, also look at some of those factors that it's actually eroding these protective factors that should be there to also protect us. So Dr. Aria, please just take note of that. We'll look at what are those things that are actually eroding some of this protective factor. Now, she also spoke about the social emotional skills. And some of the things that baffles me is some of the things that we were able to accommodate, tolerate, and go through or navigate so well when we were much younger seems not to be there again. And children nowadays just feel like they want to just bounce off Any slight thing, they are there, and they have just lost it. That's the word now. They have just lost it. What's eroding all of these things? Because we need to look at them. This topic that we're looking at today is very germane, because the environmental factors also, to a greater extent, determines how well we're able to function. You imagine waking up in the morning, you live in a closed environment like Mr. Okiowo talked about. The climate is just not so good. You have to do Molue and everything. The first time ever I came to Lagos and I entered Molue, that was the last time I ever entered it. Because by the time I entered, it was choky. The smell, the everything. Do you know, I actually vomited. I vomited, and I told myself, I said, lie, whatever it is, I am not getting into those bus again, never again. Because it was just like, what is this? And then, we had to start running, pursuing, before they even had to push me up. They pushed me up to be able to enter. And then after everything, we're just, no, that was just a very terrible experience. But we'll look at all of the factors that are eroding, and then as we move on in this conversation. Now, Mr. Lumide Okewo, let's look at how can we begin to cope. There's so much factors now that's affecting us, affecting our mental health, affecting how well we're able to move on. Dr. Arya talked about even the issue of isolation, loneliness, causing depression, anxiety, and quite a lot, body shaming and all of those things. Now, how do we deal with all of this? What are the psychological tools that we need to be able to handle some of these things? Over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Dr. Harriet, for opening up this conversation again. So I just want to also add, in terms of, how do we then begin to manage some of these things? We talked about climate, places that are very, that are not open up and that are not opened up and all of that. How do we begin to start to get people to become better in their mental wellness? The first thing I would like to speak to would be that, as an individual, you must be self-aware. Okay, self-awareness about your environment is very important. Self-awareness about yourself. Do you understand how you respond maybe when you are in a closed environment? Do you know how you respond when you are in a space that is dirty, in a space that, the places are things like how you react. So self-awareness is something that we will need to look at very, very much as an individual in any environment, to be able to cope with a lot of the things that have been mentioned, whether it's socially, whether it's in the school, whether it's at work. You must be aware of your own capacity, your capabilities, how you relate to the environment. How would you react? How do you feel overwhelmed when you are in a cluttered space? How would you manage that? When you know that, okay, if I'm in this kind of place, I am always anxious. Like the example I gave, the person that came to the hospital and feels anxious. Also, I was trying to help her get to the fact that, okay, so what has happened in the past? Was any experience that you had that made going to the hospital difficult for you, makes you anxious and all of that? Then she was able to pick on maybe something that happened when she was younger. And so becoming more self-aware of the person that you are or the kind of environment you are in, how you respond in that kind of thing would help in a long way to, Dr. Kevin was talking about the children of nowadays. Everything must be done for them. They love to watch the screen and all of that. Are we helping them to build self-awareness? Are we helping them to build resilience in terms of making sure that, there's something, you have to go the extra mile, there's something you're looking for, and then you must push to get it, for it to open. So you must be resilient, you must be able to do those things that would help you become a better person. You must learn how to relax, how to cope in the environment. We talk about all of these things, talking about school, how children are responding. Some want to have a sense of belonging. We have to teach them how to be able to relate with other people within that school environment, that will make them how to make a friend. So that will teach them how to have a sense of belonging, not to be intimidated, not to feel like they are being bullied, or even when they are being bullied, they'll be able to stand up because they are aware, they know who they are. They have that resilience that, okay, someone is trying to bear. So many other things you can report. You can either, also stand up to the person and show that you are confident about yourself. So those are some of the things that would help feeling safe at school. So the school environment must also be providing that maybe aesthetics that will make the students feel emotionally and physically safe when they are in school. The way the teacher handles them, and then you must have things like school psychologists. You can have social workers within the school. You can have school counselor. Those things help. And when you talk about the workplace, there are lots going on in the workplace. How to cope in the workplace. Someone that is feeling anxious at work due to some things, psychosocial exposure that the person might be having at home. Maybe there is wife or husband battery, there is a lot of things going on. There is poverty that is affecting how the person relates. How then is the office able to understand in terms of, okay, this person is performing low, used to be a high performer. How do we then get into have a system that helps the workers or the staff of the organization be able to onboard it? Maybe they have a psychosocial support system where, or employee assistance programs where you have an external person come to talk to them.
We are having difficulties hearing you, Mr. Olumide.
You have some of these things sorted out. Hello?
Hello, we are having difficulties hearing you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
I think it's better now, but you need to maintain this position.
Okay.
Go on, sir.
Okay. I was also thinking, okay, let me just go on. I'll just try to maintain. I'm on the same spot. So I'm not sure. I think that's the next one. So I was talking about the workplace. The workplace, creating programs where the staff or the members of a team are able to express themselves when they're having challenges, when they are having difficulties that might not even be work related. It might be some of the experiences they are having at home. It might be that their social economic status is not, is affecting how they are performing at work. And so the organization must be able to provide programs like employee assistance program that will help them be able to access, or someone that is external, because a lot of the times people that are within an organization might not want to talk to the human resources because they feel that their performance management might be affected when they are being rated. So those kind of programs can help. The government can also, in terms of managing the environment better. I know there used to be a time when we had environmental sanitation days where people are able to declutter their environment, they're able to clean out their spaces and all of that. Like, if government can bring such programs back, they're going to help in terms of individuals relating with the environment and then making them have better mental wellness, the capacity to have mental wellness. So socially also, people want to be able to have access to good transport and all of that. So the government can also do more in that. So, but individually, like I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of things about that, being self-aware, having a proper orientation as to your environment, knowing the kind of space that you belong to. I mean, I can imagine a teenager or a young adult these days, if they have to go out by themselves, they might get lost because they are used to being carried, taken in their parents' vehicle. And I mean, so if they become more self-aware, being exposed to the environment, they take public transport, like Dr. Kevin was saying, like our first experience with taking a monorail or a big bus in Lagos. So some of those things would help. So I believe that these are some of the ways that we can better relate with our environment, that we can cope better, we can be able to sustain our mental wellness in terms of, being very open to the environment that we have found ourselves.
All right, thank you so very much, Mr. Lumide. So we had a bit of network issues with you, but I could also hear first that you talked about awareness, self-awareness. Self-awareness is key. Everybody must understand what is going on and how best to be able to address it. Again, I hear you say that, yes, there has to be some policies in place. There has to be some implementations in terms of, yes, counselors and other things like that. Yes, some of those things are needed to be able to help us to be able to do better and to be able to cope well. But while you were talking, some of the things that was just going on within my ears, there are people who are in this situation already, and they are having difficulties coping. As a matter of fact, some of them had broken down because they don't see a future. They wake up each morning, they live in waterlogged area. Every time that it's about to rain, they start praying and say, God, please don't let it rain. If it rains when they are outside of their home, they are sure they can't go back home that day. And if when they're at home, they would also know that, hey, there's no going out. And it's demoralizing, it's demotivating. It's a lot of D for them, distressing. If there's any D that you can borrow me, then I am sure that it's a lot for them, and it impacts on their psychological functioning. It affects how they see themselves. It affects their self-belief, their values, the way they feel they can contribute meaningfully, like the definition of WHO that Dr. Arias started with, making meaningful contributions to the society. It also diminishes that. Now we will begin to look at what can they do? Some of these psychological tips that we would give them to be able to. I want you to just hold on to those thoughts before we go. But is it possible for you to change your location, because it's kind of cracking from your head? So maybe you just find another place to sit, so that would help. But before we come back to you now, I want Dr. Arias to quickly
Sorry,
address.
can I change my device? Can you,
yeah, you can
enable my other device?
Okay, they will do that.
Yes, can you help me enable the other device and mute this?
Okay, we will do that before we come back to you. But before we come back to you, Dr. Arias, now let's look at how can we strengthen the protective factor? Because we said even the so-called protective factor seems to be, we are gradually eroding them. The family bond, the safe neighborhood. I don't think neighborhood are safe anymore. You don't want to go out at night again. It is 6 or 7, you start locking up your door. Serious security iron bars, that even for you to open now, it takes like 10-15 minutes. Now, how can we strengthen these protective factors so that it would keep helping us? A lot have been eroded. The family unit and every other thing. How can we strengthen the protective factors? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kemi. I would just like to add that looking at the Nigerian context, it's a whole lot. That's true. It's a whole lot. Things are happening. A lot of people already feel deprived, deprivation, not only in terms of lack of money, but lack of resources and access to life opportunities, access to resources such as adequate housing, exposure to negative stressors such as violence, crimes, or lack of even something as common as the green space, like a park, where you can even go and sit down and think about your life, somewhere serene. We were deprived of all these kind of things. So with all this eroding of protective factors you were talking about, these are the basic things. Political will, no more. Right now in Lagos, the only thing we're interested in is building everywhere, Everywhere is clustered and cluttered with buildings. You don't even have a place to sit down. Then let's even look at this jackpot that people are jackpotting. Parents are sending their children out of the country, and the children are going and not coming back. So these parents, sometimes single parents or widowed or parents, are there alone. No family support. Everybody is now about me, myself, and I. It's just me and my family. No more community interaction, no more family hangouts that we used to experience in our times. So how do we strengthen this community well-being? For individuals, we're influenced by a lot of factors in the community level, such as social networking. A lot of us are on some social network group, whether virtually or physically. So a lot of us belong to social groups. Many of us belong to groups from our universities, secondary school, even peer pressure groups. You have people from a certain part of the country that have their August meeting. It is a way of strengthening social well-being, It is a way of helping to improve well-being of individuals. Also, civic engagement, volunteering in certain things, that will help you take your mind off certain things that are happening. For those that are living in areas that, out of the fact that they can't afford to live in better places, we should be able to do what Mr. Okewo has said, self-awareness. You know that this environment is too fast-paced for you. Move to somewhere where you can self-pace your activity, maybe in the confine of your little space, Talk to somebody, If you're already living with a mental health issue on your medications, take your medications. Talk to your psychologist. Talk to your social workers. We have all these assets, and we're trying in Yaba to at least extend into the community so that we can give people access, because this is the privation I'm talking about. People that live in these low areas, these areas that you've just described, they're actually the ones that need these mental health services, but the access to it is a problem. Someone that lives in Shango, before he now thinks of getting to Yaba, he has to think the money that he's going to pay transport, having to jump this motorway or BRT or whatever, even the road, the state of the road, before he gets to us in Yaba for whatever help, he's already, tired. He's already in a state of, oh God, what kind of frustration is this? So self-awareness, I agree with Mr. Okewo, is a way of strengthening what we have to prevent us from having mental illness. For children, yes, children nowadays are being helped to do everything. We have to help our children build resilience. We have to help them. And the car will not take them to school every day. Once in a while, take a bus. Let them also see that things are happening. Let them also see that they can also find themselves in a situation that they need to effectively use self-awareness to be able to monitor their mental state, to give them good mental being. So social capital is really, really important. And it gives us values like tolerance, trust, solidarity for one another. In this hospital, we have what is called the Yaba family. We all try to have each other's back. This is one way of strengthening and strengthening the environmental factors to prevent mental well-being. Thank you, Kemi.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Ariet, for that. Self-awareness, understand what is happening. and find a way to deal with it. You know, gone are the days when you will move to the village and somebody will say they have just you or you have lost all. Because these are some of the mentality that people carry. And then they will tell you that, oh, you do not do well. That means, everything is lost for you. And so because of that, that means you have lost, you're a loser. And no, excuse me, you understand what it calls for, what it requires, and you're doing the necessary or the needful. And that's the most important thing. Don't let, there are so many times that people would begin to use this negative words, this negative, what we call it, belief system, to make you feel so terrible about yourself. The fact that you move to a slow-paced environment does not mean you have missed out. A lot of people can't cope with the stress of Lagos. Excuse me, having to wake up 5 a.m. every day, and then you're in traffic, you sit for 3 hours. That's like you have gotten to Ibadan or Osho State and you had come back. That's what it looks like. It's a journey. You're going to work and you're doing a big time journey. And then somebody says you get a job that would give you the same amount and every other thing that's kind of like even a better quality of life. And they are now saying you have been just or you. No, that's not it at all. All right, so I'm sorry about that. There's an echo in the background. All right. Okay. All right, so, all of these things are very important because they help us to be able to cope. And these are some of the things that we're looking at in terms of the environmental factor. Now, I'll come back to Mr. Olumide Okeowo and look at the psychological tips that we're going to take away from here. Now we are here. What do we tell ourselves? How do we help ourselves to get out of all of these things? Over to you, sir. Hello?
Okay, so from where we're coming from, like Dr. Harriet mentioned, social capital, there's so many other things that we can. So as an individual, you then want to, if you become self-aware, then you know that, I feel anxious in certain situations. I can't wish away the traffic in Lagos. But what can I do when I'm in traffic? Can I listen to music? Can I, turn on, put on my earpiece, even if I'm in a public transport, and try to listen to something that can calm me? Can we, we were mentioning somebody that if they live in a flooded area or their area is prone to flooding. Are there better ways that we know that, if it is raining, what can we do ahead of the rains? What can we do? Can we move some things away from where we know that normally it will get flooded? And can we also plan ahead to make sure that drains are being cleared, to make sure that as a community or as a group of people that live in a particular place, we come together to make sure that we clean our environment, or make sure that we're communicating with the right authorities even before the rains, to make sure that they come to clear our drainages and all of that, keeping the environment clean, so that that alone would, the sense of comfort that we have done several things to ensure that our environment is in a good place. And then as individuals, when you are you know who you are, then you know that instead of resorting to things like use of alcohol or smoking, can I, maybe go and watch a movie, or can I speak to someone if I'm having difficulties in terms of finding it hard to do something or living a habit? Can I seek help? So those are some of the things that can help. And even for institutions like Psychiatry Hospital, Lagos University Teaching Hospital, creating more awareness in terms of what services that we can render to help people adjust to their environment. And earlier on, I mentioned employee assisted program. This can come in various forms. It can come in various forms in a way to help people adjust properly at work, teach them communication skills, teach them how to relate with other people, interpersonal relationships. These are things that people would have to learn, apart from maybe the government creating policies that can, make the society better, social contracts that can make people live well, housing programs, transportation programs. But as individuals, we must embrace things like personal development. Oh, okay, I need to improve my communication skill. Oh, so that I can relate with people better in my environment. I need to be able to relate with other people in my environment. I'm able to, for students that are in school, if giving them self-confidence, self-esteem, that is also coming under self-awareness program, where they know that, oh, okay, when you know who you are, you know the areas where you can develop more. You can develop more self-awareness. You can become more confident. And to go on to buttress what I mentioned earlier, which Dr. Harriet also mentioned, in terms of helping our children and the students build resilience, making them able to become, it's like when you throw a ball to the wall, it bounces back. Resilience simply means that the ability to bounce back. So when they are in difficult situations, can they bounce back? Can they go and take a bus ride to school one of those days? Can they go to the markets in public transport with their mom or with their dad? So some of these things help them to build resilience. It helps them to become more socially aware of how to interact with the environment, and then they are not, being taken advantage of when they are in maybe areas where you have other people their age that are streetwise, so they know what to do. So these are some of the ways that we can begin to help ourselves cope better within the environment. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Olumide, for that. Some of these webinars and thoughts usually just provoke thoughts within me. And when he was talking about a ball and then bouncing back, what came to my mind is the fact that sometimes it takes hair inside the ball for it to be able to bounce. What if there's no hair in the ball? What if, those are some of the things that just goes on in what's going on when he was talking about, you bounce it and then it bounces back. But what if there is no hair? What if this individual had been bounced severally? I know sometimes when you play ball over time, it tends to lose the hair and it becomes very flabby. What if this individual has become very flabby? And, how then do they now cope? These are some of the things that, I want us to begin to provoke in our listeners today so that we're able to help them. And Usesi said, sometimes money is a major factor. And I agree. And these are some of the hair that is inside the ball. Because when money is out of the thing, your reverse will say, when you go, when money is not there, excuse me, there is no talk, there is no conversation. The fact that debit alert even goes out of my phone, sometimes it's depressing to me. Let me tell you here. It's really, really depressing. I know the tone of debit alert and I know the tone of credit alert. I don't know how I know it, but I know it. When there is a credit alert, there is this thing, they talk about endorphin hormones and everything. It comes, it pumps me up. But when debit alert comes, it depresses me somehow. Some of these things are very important. And somebody was talking about suicide. We will still talk about suicide in one of this webinar. We talked about suicide and implication, but it's also very important because when we're looking at the rate of depression, anxiety, and also so many factors that is coming on in our environment, how do we deal? How do we cope? How do we manage all of those things? These are very, very germane to this conversation that we're having. And that calls to show, talk about emotional regulation. Sometimes you just need to be able to regulate your emotion considering what you're going through. If you allow all the negative out, honestly, it leads you to something very terrible. And then you're not able to function, you're not able to cope. But when you're able to regulate, how do you perceive what is happening? What's the meaning? What is the interpretation? The fact that you are living in a waterlogged area today, does it mean that is the end for you? No, it doesn't mean that. You must restructure your thought. If you're able to restructure and see it from another dimension, look at it from another angle, this is just a building phase. This is a step up for me. And then that helps you to be able to do so well. And then UCC is saying again, is there some social services resources guidebook that is available? I would have to find out about that, and then I would revert on our social media page, something that I can use to help inform others on what is available. I'm not sure that there is a structured, now the word I have used, a structured guidebook like that. But I know there are social services that we can contact that can help us to deal with some of these things. Molufumilayo Taye says, thank you. Oluranti Ojelade says, a wonderful presentation. Kudos to the Yaba theme. But before we go, I just want Dr. Aria to quickly address something. Now, I am flat out. I have tried everything. I know you have spoken about self-awareness. My boss is a bullish. My house is not even good. I have to do several things. Just give me something that would help me to be able to just cope. And then I will take home and I'll be singing with it so that you are helping me now. So any other person on this platform can now pick it up. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, Kemi. And it's good that you are self-aware to understand when it's credit alert or debit alert. I like that one. I'm going to practice it. Anyway, so when you've gone through all these things that we are telling you to do, become self-aware, stay positive, have social capital, emotional regulation, you're trying to do all these things, and it seemingly seems that it's not solving the problem in terms of your mental health well-being. Please seek help. Seek help. If you're already living with a mental health problem, continue to see your doctor, continue to see your therapist. If you're developing any form of mental health problem because of all these factors that seemingly challenging, please seek help. Here in Yaba Psychiatric Hospital, that is what we know how to do best. And the services are readily available for you at any time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so very much, Dr. Ire. And like you said, it's not just that is what we know how to do, but that's the only thing we know how to do. That's just the only thing we know how to do. And last year, during the World Mental Health Day, the medical director launched a book on resilience. It's something that we can come very handy, at this point in time. We're going through a very difficult time as a nation. And I know that quite a lot of people are trying. Yes, you are. We are all trying. As a matter of fact, we are all trying. We're just trying to put one feet ahead of the other, but the environmental factors are huge. But we have talked about so much that we need to be able to also put into cognizance the self-awareness, emotional regulation, and seeking help. Now, this is not a time to show people that you are good. No, don't be strong for people. Oh, please be strong. You can't even be strong for yourself sometimes. Just let them know that you are weak. When I am weak, I am weak. Excuse me, I cannot move from. So just, I'm feeling this way. I'm distressed. I'm tired. I am going through this. Sometimes talking about it alone, helps us to be able to get half of the problem, solved. They may not give you money, but just get it out of your chest. Just ventilate. That in a way would also help us to be able to move forward. So we want to thank everyone. Professor Fatai Badru says, awesome presentation. Kudos to the organizer. Olukemi Oke says, wonderful discourse. Thank you, Yaba Voice name. Thank you too. Kendi Olaogo, thank you. Techno BF, maybe that's your network, says, oh, I can't hear you. I'm very sorry. Ngozi says, don't live in Lagos, no money for medical services. What next? That's a very big one, no. But then please look around. Okay, look around, check around you. There's always mental health facilities, even some of our primary health centers. You can even start from there. Go to the primary health center. they will now make referral to appropriate quarters for you. So start from there. That way, you would get the best of help. The medical doctors or the health professionals in the medical the health centers too are equipped to be able to recognize this and deal with it appropriately too. So please, you can also just get there. Amarachi says, I really appreciate this team. It's the first time I'm joining, and I must say this is so enriching and enlightening. Thank you, and thank you for being here. We have something loaded for you next month, which is May. We're going to talk about childhood trauma, implications, and management. And when we're looking at this, yes, the next webinar will come up on the 3rd Thursday by God's grace in May. And we'll be looking at childhood trauma. We're going to look at implications, and we'll look at the management. And, sometimes you have parents who are bullies because they were bullies too. We look at the implications of all of these things that people go through in life and how it eventually manifests and how we can now help them to be able to get out of this. And these are some of the things that we'll be looking at, even for children who are currently, today we talked about children who are not, they call them the Gen Z. The Gen Z is different from the Y2K. It's different from the old school, the analog parenting that we have done in the past. These are things that would really, and it's going to be a very, very robust and wonderful discussion. I look forward to seeing you on that platform too. Oluwa Damilola says, thank you. This is enlightening. Thank you. So we're going to just take one last word from our speakers today, and then we would call it a wrap. Thank you so very much. Yeah. Dr. Arret.
Thank you very much, everyone, for joining in. And I hope all that we've talked about, everyone will be able to practice it, even ourselves. I want to start practicing self-awareness for credit alert. So I hope everybody will go home, try to practice all that we've talked about, be aware of what is happening with you in your environment, try to keep yourself emotionally stable, be self-aware of your mental well-being, be self-aware of all the negative impacting environmental factors, the positive impacting environmental factors. And remember that Yaba Psychiatric Hospital is always here to offer the service for mental health and well-being. Thank you very much.
Thank you so very much. Mr. Lumide Okelwo, the last word from you, please. Mr. Lumide Okelwo.
Okay, so thank you everyone for coming. I believe that this session that we have had would have added one or two things to your repertoire of knowledge in terms of how to relate with your environment. Be self-aware, be sensitive to what is going on around you, know who you are, try to do as much as you can, always celebrate your strengths, and then try to, as much as possible, improve on the areas where you think you can do better, particularly as it relates to you interacting with other people at work, in school, at home, everywhere you go. And thank you for coming, and we'll hope to see you another time. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Lumide, for that. Dr. Ijagbemi just sent in and said, please let people know coming to Yaba is not for mad people. Okay, so we are not mad. I am not mad. You are not mad. We are just coming for help. We get to a point where we need help. Professionals are here to help us. And so it's not gonna be the days when they will talk about it and say, Yaba, policy, weary, and other things. And no, that's not it. When you find out that you're not coping well, you find it difficult to be able to function, please just note that you can always come into the hospital for help, and we will be glad to help you. As a matter of fact, I tell people, please just come into our facility. Come for excursion. You will see that it's a very serene and very beautiful place. We're doing so much more in the world of mental health. Tale says, thank you so much for this program. We so much appreciate you. On behalf of the medical director, Dr. Lubengade Kilewoye, Dr. Luani, Dr. Ajira Tutu, Mr. Wale Biyoko, Mrs. Bakare, Mr. Labi, myself, our technical guy here who is always just here helping us, Kayode Ladeji. Want to say thank you so very much once again for joining us on this webinar. We hope to see you again. Please remember, we were talking about childhood trauma, implication, and management. It's going to be very, very robust. Take care of your mental health. Please be self-aware, self-regulate, and seek for help when you find out that you're not coping very well. Again, bye-bye. Take care. Thank you so very much, everyone.
Thank you.